I remember the first time I read this passage, like really read it at an age where I could comprehend a little bit better what was going on. And I remember thinking how horrible this sounded. Bringing fire, bringing division. Why would God want to do that? I couldn't get my teenage brain around the concept that came to me years later that Jesus wasn't predicting anything. Jesus was actually just outlining what was already happening. So let's go back and review the scripture a bit. So it talks about a baptism by fire and about how Jesus has not come to bring peace, he's come to bring flames. Now, we really have to kind of unpack that a little bit because Western Christianity likes comfort. We like to be the establishment community. We like to have our traditions, our holidays be the ones that are marked with statutory days off. We like the fact that we are the dominant because if you're the dominant, you don't have to justify your existence. You just are. So we like the peaceful, nice Jesus. We like the God who is not a problem. But unfortunately, that's not the God we have. It was never the God that we have. It has been packaged, our faith has been packaged and repackaged so often that we kind of forget what the origins look like. We have some folks that have gone hog wild towards the hell and damnation, judgment, whatever garbage. That's actually not part of the Christian tradition. But we've also got people who are kind of like the kumbaya, don't mess with me, everybody's into this together. And quite frankly, that's not it either. It feels good, but that's not what Jesus was talking about. Jesus came to bring fire and division. That's a pretty rough message. He then goes on to talk about how there will be separations in families. Father against son, son against father, mother against daughter, daughter against mother, mother-in-law against daughter-in-law. I always thought this was predicting, but it's not. It's just a statement of fact. See, here's the thing. Christianity came in, or even, you know what, we even won't even call it Christianity. The proto-Christians, the Jesus followers in the first centuries, they were under Roman occupation. They were primarily, not exclusively, but primarily part of the Hebraic culture. Now, one of the unique things about the Hebrews is that they always fought the Romans. As the Romans expanded into other regions, sure they had wars, but they tamed those areas and they rolled in, and a lot of them actually welcomed the Romans. I mean, better jobs, better clothes, better roads, better food, better access to other resources. There were some positives, but they had to give up their sovereignty to Rome in order to receive all of those benefits. Those who have any sense of British history have heard about Boudica. She and her daughters, who were horribly, horribly molested and raped, stood up against the Romans. And a lot of those folks, they eventually fled into Scotland or Ireland or Wales that we know of today to get away from the Romans. The Hebrew people did not have that as an option. There was nowhere for them to go. This was their homeland and this is what they stayed. But consistently, from the time the Romans rolled into that part of the world, the Hebrews fought the Romans. That is why in the year 70, when Rome finally lowered the boom, they expelled the Hebrews from Jerusalem and surrounding areas. The Christians, most of them had already left. The Jesus followers had already left Dodge, which is part of the reason why there was a historic conflict. Part of it, not the only reason, but part of the reason there was an historic conflict between those who followed the Pharisees, which would eventually become Judaism, and those who followed Jesus and potentially the Essenes, and eventually would become Christianity. Because those who followed the Pharisees were kind of annoyed that those who followed Jesus left. And they didn't stand up there and fight with them the way that they thought they should. All of that's history. But the thing is, these are people who fought for their rights, who fought to be independent, who fought to follow their tradition and not have Rome kind of push over their gods and their temples and everything else the way Rome had done around the rest of the Roman world. So the Hebrews always fought. So then we have Jesus coming in, giving them a message that God wants you. God's on the side of you who are going to fight this, who are going to stand up, who are going to bring a different way. Now, of course, we understand as followers of Christ that Jesus was not talking about a military dictatorship. He was not talking about military campaigns and actions. He was talking about changing society, changing people, changing hearts, minds, to create a new world that we all kind of had to work at together, because anybody who has done anything militarily knows that's not sustainable. You cannot carry that on. Not long before the military becomes butchers. And we've got so many examples of history, we don't even have to recount them. We're seeing them right now going on in both Ukraine and Gaza and a whole lot of other conflicts around the world that the Western media isn't even paying attention to. So Jesus came and brought something different. But one of the big messages he gave all of these people when he was there is you matter. In a world where it was common for newborn babies to be put out to be exposed to die if the father didn't want them, the Christ followers said you matter. The Hebrews were doing it too, but the Christ followers specifically saw a person, saw a message, saw an action, and they were involved in it. And it brought division. And it was not a matter of good guys and bad guys. It was a matter of those who were willing to take the risk and those who weren't. Jesus was not predicting that this was going to happen. Jesus was commenting on what was already happening by people leaving. Even when Peter and Andrew and John and James were called, we hear in the Gospel of Luke, I think, that they left their father's boat. They caused division. Now, social culture will say they probably went back and helped out, but they left. No plan in place, they just left. Following Christ was divisive. There were a whole lot of people that did not want to be part of it. People who were afraid of the Romans, turns out rightly so. The Pharisees and the Sadducees, one of the reasons they wanted Jesus gone was because they feared the Romans rolling in, and they were right. Jesus was not telling people what was going to come. And that's really important that we hold on to that, because we've got to bring that now into our modern times. Jesus causes division. We cannot have a faith that is progressive, that actually changes the world, that brings the vision of Christ, if we are not really willing to be part of that division. In fact, my own personal journey with ordained ministry shows a church very much not willing to have confrontation, wanting to keep the myth of peace by denying what's in front of them, by hurting one or two people as opposed to challenging an institution. They'll talk the talk, but they don't want to walk it. That is our big sin as a Christian community right now, as we do not want to get uncomfortable. The thing is, if you're going to follow the message of Jesus, you have to get uncomfortable. There is no way around it. This is where faith comes in, because faith gives us hope. We know that eventually, if we do this, if we change the world, if we challenge the status quo, if we make the comfortable uncomfortable, if we challenge the politics of greed and hate and dismissal and bigotry, that eventually we're going to get to a land that is better, where we can all be in peace, where we can all sing Kumbaya. But we're not there yet, and we cannot force it. We cannot jump ahead. And unfortunately, so many of the West want to jump ahead. They don't realize that we have to fight for it. And we have to fight again and again and again. Every few generations have to put up with the same fight. We're just inching the dial a little bit each time we actually stand up and say something. But we have to realize that our faith, our commission, our calling, our following Christ demands that we not be comfortable. And I have told many congregations, if you are comfortable in your faith, you are doing it wrong. And Jesus in this passage lets us know that. We are not meant to be comfortable. And this whole thing ends with Jesus saying, what is wrong with you? Can you not read what's going on? You can read the weather. You know what something's coming in that's wrong, but can you not read social cues? And this is not an indication of reading when the end of the world is. That Jesus already taken care of that. No one's going to know when that's coming. It's read the social cues. See what's around you. Why are you not standing up to the injustices that are all around you all the time? And we are living in an absolutely parallel to the Roman world that Jesus would have lived in. Nuanced difference, but it's essentially the same thing. The oligarchs are taking over. The greed is taking over. People are getting poorer and poorer and poorer. Where are we? In fact, if there's one question I'm asked regularly by people who are not Christians, it's where is the Christians? Where are the Christians? Where are they standing up? Thing is, we're not connecting, and we're not doing it loud enough. We're not doing it with as much power as we need to. But this is what Jesus has called us to be. Division should not scare us. And even if it does scare us, that's okay, because we have faith in what the future is going to look like. We know what is expected on the other end, but we're not there yet. And this whole tension of now and not yet, it's something that's been bred into the Christian faith. Now is the time, it's always the time, to exercise our social action. However we can do it from wherever we are, in the ability that will not cause too much damage, maybe. But some of us have very few obligations outside of us, so we can risk more, and we can put more out there on the line. The thing is, Jesus said this is what's going to happen. And if it separates you from your family, from your friends, from your community, as the man says, c'est la vie, c'est la vie. It is something that is just part of our faith. We are way too comfortable on a Sunday morning in our pews. We give an hour tops to our faith development, carry on the rest of the week as if it's never happened. Jesus is saying, no, we can't do that. We have to be prepared to walk into the fray, get uncomfortable, start annoying people, piss them off if you have to, in the name of justice, in the name of the promise that God has made, until everybody is free. None of us are free. So everybody is in this together.